Dealing with the condition itself is not enough.
Dear Mr. Massa, I'm just trying to mind my own business. What's the matter? It's just another day, another black king captured. I'm about to lose my brain, stuck inside this ghetto rapture. I got a lot of smoke. If you want it, you can have it. They want a hat trick, but this is black girl magic. Ain't talking about the kind that'll make you disappear, but I'm talking about the power of the melanin within. Ain't looking for trouble, but I'ma say this one time. I put two dukes up if you try to touch mine. We still want justice for Samir and Trayvon. You say you don't see color, but racism ain't blind. They targeting little kids whose skin look just like mine. So I'm paranoid, it's a war zone outside. And I'm a black queen, so if you ask me to step out of my car, you gon' have to snatch me. Cause I ain't going no damn well. Had to spend my whole life living unfair. Ancestors got my back and they right here. You can never understand, it's a nightmare. Living in my black shoes by the black rules. You can keep your handshake, I don't dap coon. The white man to go nuts if he can't shoot. But you all on his side like a damn fool. Make it make sense.
We are oppressed.
Queen.
We are exploited. We are downtrodden.
Make it make
Queen.
We are
sense.
denied not only civil rights, but even human rights.
Ahmadiyah.
So the only way we're going to get some of this
Ahmadiyah.
oppression and exploitation
Queen.
away from us or aside from us is come together
Queen.
against the common enemy. Who taught you to hate the texture of your
Ahmadiyah.
hair? Who taught you to hate the color of your
Ahmadiyah.
skin?
Parents, pay attention to the books, the school system, even to your little children. Lies mixed with wisdom. His skin too bright, so he was blind to the prison. My skin just right, so I collide with division. You trying to pray to God, but we tired of religion. No savior saving, we got to save our savings. We used to pay miss, how we gon' make the slave rich? But who's to blame, and tell me why you complaining? We need a team effort just to rule the nation. Like a bad relationship, missing communication. We missing moderation. They're trying to get a poison to my population. No reparations. I'm getting tired of Satan.
We are oppressed.
I'm
Queen.
getting tired of waiting.
We are downtrodden.
Queen.
We are denied not only civil rights, but even human rights.
Ahmadiyah.
So the only way we're going to get some of this
Ahmadiyah.
oppression and exploitation.
Queen.
All right, hello everyone, Grand Rising. Thanks for tuning back in once again to the original Queen Shakur show. I'm your host, Queen Shakur, and this is your Sunday Vitamins. So as you're coming in, please feel free to go ahead and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Be sure to click that notification bell and click the word all so you're notified each time the Queen Goddess goes live. All right, so also don't forget to double check and make sure you're still subscribed, especially if you have not been receiving the notifications. Okay, because they definitely are lax about sending them out. Okay, some of you may get them, but a lot of people don't. Now, with that all being said, before we get into it, we're going to have a brief word from my sponsor. Hey, Soul Sister, Rudy Roots is here, Deronda. All right, Nessa G, let's get into it. Pathways and Prophecies, Yvette. Okay, Bronze Flat Power God. Pretty Wings, I see you, beloved. Shout out to all my loyal roads and everyone tuned into the Queen. I see you, Emperor Rex, Songwriter Sunny. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into it. And shout out to my moderators because y'all know they be putting in work. I see you, Charlene. Okay, hey, Queen Shay. All right, so let's have a brief word from my sponsor at 12 Tribes.
Do not buy 12 Tribes on Earth hair growth oil and hair magic elixir unless you want super healthy, gorgeous hair that grows. They have a whole line of amazing hair growth products, including hair growth leave-in conditioner spray, hair growth shampoo, hair growth spray, and hair growth butter. I'm starting to sense a theme here. They include quality natural ingredients. They smell amazing, and you can see the results for yourself. So if you're looking for healthy hair growth for your natural or relaxed hair, try 12 Tribes on Earth today.
All right, so don't forget you can purchase 12 Tribes hair oil at Etsy.com. Just look for Lisa Crafts. You can also find it at Walmart.com. And don't forget that she also sells beard oil. All right, so with that all being said, let's get into it. So I'm sure by now you already know that Iran dedicated one of their drones, okay, to Tupac Shakur. I find it also interesting, don't you? I find it also interesting. Okay, so we got to talk about that. We've got to talk about that and see what, some of the TikTokers have to say about it. Okay, so anyway, first things first, though, before we get into that, let's talk about how the pilots, okay, who went down and they have been searching for him. They have actually found him. Okay, now they say he's injured, but he's okay. And Trump is just bragging and talking crazy, making all these threats. Okay, this man is something else. Anyway, with that all being said, let me pull up the receipts. Likes up, everyone, please. Don't forget to like and share. Thank you in advance. Okay, here we go. Sorry, I'm waiting for this video to cue, beloveds. Okay, here it is.
Jet that was shot down by Iran has now been rescued after an intense search in hostile territory.
President Trump says the airman is hurt, but, quote, will be just fine. ABC's Allison Cossack has more.
The breakthrough comes after a dangerous operation to recover 2 U.S. crew members who were forced to eject over Iran. One was rescued earlier. Now the second has been located. Adding to the complexity of the rescue, 2 C-130 transport planes used in the operation became disabled at a site inside Iran. U.S. forces then destroyed the aircraft to prevent them from falling into Iranian hands. Additional planes were sent in to complete the extraction of the airman and rescue teams. On Friday, 2 Black Hawk helicopters were hit, several crew members injured, but all made it back safely. An A-10 Warthog providing air support was also struck, forced to divert to Kuwait, where the pilot ejected before the aircraft went down.
It is dangerous because we will take a lot of risks to recover an isolated person, which means that we will fly lower. We may also insert troops onto the ground.
Meanwhile, the war with Iran is escalating. President Trump posting video he says shows intense U.S. strikes inside the country, claiming key Iranian military leaders have been killed. The president now issuing a 48-hour ultimatum, calling on Iran to make a deal or reopen the Strait of Hormuz, a critical global oil route. Trump writing, "Time is running out, 48 hours before all hell will rain down." The impact is already being felt here at home. Gas prices surging above $4 a gallon, airfares rising as much as 20%, and major companies like Amazon, FedEx, and UPS adding fuel surcharges. Diplomatic efforts are underway, but there's no sign of a breakthrough as fighting continues to intensify. Allison Cossack, ABC News, New York.
Now, here's my thing. Trump should know by now all of this tough talk and all of these threats that he's making, it's not helping anything at all. Okay. And see, like I told you all on yesterday, this is how you know that he's lying when he's talking about negotiations. Nobody's negotiating with him. Who would when he's sitting there talking about they need to be blown back or bombed back to the Stone Ages? Who's going to be having a negotiation talk with him about a ceasefire or coming to any sort of resolution? Nobody would. Okay, Trump is a madman, all right? And that's another topic we're going to discuss, all right? Because I have some receipts. Now, with that all being said, as I always do, please pay attention. Okay, so Miss Tree says they try to talk directly to us with rap and our icons. Okay, thank you for insight into the topic, beloved, and your contribution to the channel. I appreciate you. Peace, love, and blessings. Now, see, Stan just gifted 5 memberships to the Queen's channel. Thank you so much for your kindness and your generosity, beloved. I really appreciate you. Peace, love, and blessings. You all be sure to shout out see Stan, specifically those of you who are gifted with these 5 memberships. Okay, that is always generous when someone buys memberships for other people. Okay, so now with that all being said, Let's go to this next clip. They say Trump issues fiery new threat against Iran as details emerge of U.S. service members rescue. This is what Trump thinks is the thing to do. Just go around making threats, acting like, I guess because he considers himself as a dictator. So he thinks all he has to do is make a bunch of threats, and that's going to scare people into submission somehow, some way. If he does it long enough, it's not working now, and it's not ever going to work, Trump, especially when you have people who are not cowards. They're not even afraid to die. Okay.
9:03, and this morning, President Donald Trump is vowing to attack Iran's power plants and bridges on Tuesday if the country fails to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. That is according to a Truth Social post from just minutes ago. It comes as we've now learned overnight that the U.S. pilot who went missing after an F-15 fighter jet was shot down in Iran has been rescued. The airman is safe and is expected to be okay. Jim Sciutto tells us what we know about the operation this morning.
President Trump announcing a successful search and rescue operation for the second member of that F-15 crew shot down over Iran on Friday. This a difficult operation, a dangerous one, the president said. It involved dozens of aircraft, and we know that they were rushing against time. I had been told that the U.S. received a communication from this missing airman on Friday evening, and indications that he had been injured, which added to the urgency of the search and rescue operation. But also we know that Iranian authorities were trying to get to this pilot first. Iranian state TV even going so far as to encourage residents in the area to locate the pilot, report the pilot's location, and offering a reward to do so. So we know that there was a race here, a race against time to get him to treat those injuries, get him out of the country safely, get the pilot before Iranian authorities or the military were able to do so. And we should also note that search and rescue operations are highly dangerous operations. You have a lot of aircraft involved, many of those aircraft flying low and slow, the helicopters that would do the extraction, the fixed wing aircraft that would help locate. They did, of course, have fighter cover, but again, a dangerous operation, a difficult one over time with, thankfully, a safe outcome for this missing airman. Jim Sciutto.
Yes, thankful that he was, in fact, safely rescued. Okay, that is good. I'm glad they got him. But, someone said in the chat that they believe, who said that? Michael M. said, Queen, I believe the Iranians allowed him to be rescued. They did a lot to rescue that man now. They probably did allow him to be rescued, beloved. Nice M10K says, Queen, I'm going to need you to call Shady Pines and make sure that the presidential suite is ready for the Donald. Honey, I already called Shady Pines and they said Donald Trump is not welcome there. Now, they do still have that room reserved for Biden, but they said Trump absolutely cannot come there. Okay? And then here's the thing. If I'm registering him and paying for his room, he's definitely not going to get a presidential suite, beloved. Okay? More like a room in the attic. It's up to me. Please pay attention. Now let's get into this whole thing with Tupac, because I'm here for it. I'm here for it. Okay, please pay attention. Tupac said they got money for wars, but can't feed the poor. But here's the thing. Iran has always been fans of Tupac, many of them. Let's get into it, because back in 2018, the president of Iran actually quoted Tupac lyrics. And also, they've been down with the Black Panther Party, just for those of you who don't know. Okay? Former Iranian president quotes Tupac Shakur and strange attack on U.S. in Twitter outburst. Now, I want you all to pay attention, because that's what they called it. The U.S. called it a strange attack on the U.S. in Twitter outburst. It was no attack. What he said was the truth. You see, the thing about the United States and Bibi and them, they don't like for the truth to be told. And why is that? Because they've committed numerous of atrocities, okay, acts of depraved, just wickedness, and they don't want anyone talking about it. So when you do, they say, oh, we're being attacked. They play the victim. And it's so interesting, because many people, specifically those who look like me, and also people who just don't look like them, They have committed so many atrocities, but they want to sit there and pretend that they're the victims and then accuse other people of playing the victims when we call out their BS. Okay, former Iranian president Mahmoud Ahmadinejad. I know I said that wrong. Ahmadinejad. Ahmadinejad. Okay, so anyway, he quoted the lyrics, and here's what he said. He said one of the main objectives of the hashtag Black Panther Party was feeding the hungry, which did not sit well with the hashtag United States government, hashtag Brother Huey, hashtag October 15th. He said it's time to fight back. And that's what Huey said. 2 shots in the dark. Now Huey's dead. Do y'all hear it? Do y'all hear it? He said 2 shots in the dark, now Huey's dead. Those are the lyrics that he quoted. And you know, like I said, they were here for the George Floyd protests also going in on the United States. We'll get to that in a moment. But this is what they said: in memory of Tupac, and then put Illuminati. Okay? I want y'all to pay attention. Because what most people don't know, Yvette said, I'm so glad he was rescued. I was so relieved last night. Yes, I am too, beloved. Okay? I am too. Nice M10K says, save it for the real President Biden. You heard the queen. Okay. Now, with that all been said, let's go to what some people had to say about this on TikTok, and then we'll get into a few more receipts. Likes up, everyone. Please don't forget to like and share. Also, I have a new video put out by Iran that we're going to listen to.
I need you to pay very close attention to this video I'm about to show you.
Hey, I'm a ride with you. Believe in God, believe in Death Row East. We plan to take the same strategy we use with Death Row West, which is mind over matter, taking all our weaknesses and making it to our strengths. We know that we got strength in numbers. We're going to prove once and for all that all these people talking about an East Coast, West Coast war, they like the Judas was to Jesus. They only here to cause confusion. We here to bring money and to bring change. They here to cause confusion. All these weak rappers, Nas, all these suckers, they battling off of East and West like this is a game. This ain't no game. We out here trying to help our people make money. We trying to get out of this 3-strike circle they got us in and start getting our papers on. So that's what we doing. By strength in numbers, we coming to the East Coast to prove there is no fear, there is no problem, there ain't nothing but opportunity. And the opportunity is overthrow the government y'all got right now, which is Bad Boy and Nas and all that bullshit, and we will bring a new government here that will feed every person in New York.
All right, if you want to understand why Iran posted something like this on one of their, I need you.
Okay, now with that all being said, that's his opinion of why they posted that about Tupac. Now I'm gonna, like I said, I'm gonna pull up some more receipts momentarily, but here's another TikToker who gave their thoughts. Likes up, everyone. Please don't forget to like and share. Thank you in advance.
Claim they have hit another vessel linked to Israel, which was trying to pass the Strait of Hormuz. And for some reasons, they have dedicated one of their Shahid 136 to Tupac, naming it the Illuminati. But I don't understand the link between Iran and Tupac. Maybe because he was a revolutionary rapper back in the days, but was shot and killed. And they have dedicated one of their Shahid 136 missiles to Tupac. But the good news is there have been a higher percentage of ships passing through the Strait of Hormuz recently, like 15 ships successfully passed through Strait of Hormuz today, including France. Including France's own vessel successfully passed through Strait of Hormuz. Hopefully, things will get better for countries that are refusing to join the war.
All right, he said he doesn't understand the link. Let's go to this last clip, and then we're going to get into the link. Now, this is a guy who worked with Tupac before. I think he does like music producing or whatnot.
Every so often people ask me if I thought it was death row or the government or who really was behind Tupac's assassination. I don't know who was. I know they'll burn in hell because of what they did, and their lineage will be inflicted with bad karma. But eventually, those dark forces would have tried to take him out, especially if he'd been given an opportunity to be a little louder, right? Because he was 25. Imagine what kind of wisdom Pocket 30 would have had, and how he would have seen it his duty to educate and empower not only his fan base, but every disenfranchised and pain-ridden child around the world. So, in this spirit, I will do projects to honor him. Rest.
All right, with that all been said, let's go to this clip of Tupac speaking. I'm going to use an overlay.
Usually, you're born into a dynasty or an empire.
His father's real estate fortunes, worth at least $413 million today.
My father didn't leave a great fortune. It was Brooklyn and Queens real estate, and it wasn't a great fortune.
Our family crest was cotton. You know what I'm saying? It's like, man, it's like the only thing we can really leave behind is culture, is music.
3 of Trump's children, Eric, Ivanka, and Don Jr., their presence raising questions about conflict of interest. The president-elect saying he's going to leave his businesses to his sons.
I feel as though I'm cheated because instead of me fulfilling my prophecy, I have to start one.
Started a business, and it's now worth billions and billions and billions of dollars.
Every day, every little thing you do, it's such a gimme, gimme, gimme. Everybody back off. You know, everybody's like, you taught that from school, everywhere. Big business, you want to be successful, you want to be like Trump, gimme, 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 push, 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 step, 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 crush, crush, crush. There's too much money here. I mean, nobody should be hitting lotto for 36 million and we got people starving in the streets.
You see it everywhere with Trump, right?
There's always a lot of gold around Trump.
In a 1992 interview, Tupac Shakur aired his feelings toward Donald Trump and specifically the ultra-wealthy alike. 4 years after the rapper's death and 21 years before the most corrupt president the United States has ever seen took office, Shakur saw the writing on the wall.
During the financial crisis, during Sandy, not one dime, not one dime, and I know this firsthand, this is fact, not conjecture, fact. Not one dime to one major food bank, one major pantry in Jersey.
Shakur is a dissenting figure to the top 1% and lashing out at Trump, who represents the inequality that's corrosive to American society.
A sham corporation to hide millions of dollars in gifts and drawing up a plan to undervalue real estate holdings on tax returns.
Like stealing money from the government, or separating parents from their children, or even banning an entire religious group altogether from entering the country. He warned us eons ago. The impasse came with an entire party kneeling to further abet corrupted politics and a portion of America seething for a fresh voice without realizing the mask Donald Trump put on to play the American worker like a fiddle. There are no social responsibilities with Trump. There are only bystanders to enrich his own pockets off the backs of the less fortunate.
Okay, beloveds, with that all being said, sorry for the delay. I was having technical difficulties. Now, with that all being said, that was a very good breakdown. Let's now talk about other ties to Tupac and Iran. So 4 days after U.S. policeman Derek Chauvin murdered George Floyd in broad daylight, former Iranian President Mohammed Ahmadinejad reached for a Tupac lyric to contextualize the events. And he said, and I quote, "Pull the trigger, kill an end. He's a hero." This is what he said. Now, he didn't say the N-word, but he said, "Pull a trigger, kill an end." Okay, that's what he said, quoting the rapper's 1992 track, Changes, and prompting a predictable mix of anger, outrage, all manufactured outrage, and amusement. Okay, Ahmadinejad, a longtime Tupac fan and ally of the new Black Panther Party, is peculiar to senior Iranian politicians, okay, in that he continues to cast himself as a permanent revolutionary. Now, with that all being said, hold on, I don't want to read this whole thing. I'm going to scroll down some. Now, the murder of George Floyd and the resulting protest have rallied Iran's elite around the internationalism remembered from the early years of the revolution and whose torch Ahmadinejad continues to carry, albeit now out of office and power. He says putting a foot on a black man's neck and pressuring him to die is not something that has just been created. It is American nature. This is what President Rouhani said in a televised speech that Thursday. He said it is something that is done with many countries like Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, and so on. Now, Iran's police and security forces have acted brutally against citizens, most notably during the 2009 protest. They say Iran set up vigils across major cities in solidarity with George Floyd. On June the 3rd, a small student protest took place outside the Swiss embassy, which represents the U.S. and Iran. Okay, so I want you all to pay attention. They had a vigil for George Floyd. Also, they say Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei, who's now dead, mind you, he once issued a speech entirely on the subject of the transatlantic slave trade and sets Uncle Tom's Cabin as necessary reading for government officials. Okay, so I just want y'all to pay attention. And absolutely, I do believe that everyone should be able to read that in high school. Okay. So Christy One Love says Afeni Shakur was last place to live was in North Carolina. Okay, so anyway, listen, for those of you who probably didn't know that, because I'm pretty sure most people don't, that is the ties to Tupac. Not to mention a lot of the Iranians over there, the teens and stuff like that at the time, they were very much influenced by Tupac. And even though they weren't supposed to be listening to that type of music, they were listening to it. Okay, please pay attention. And here's another thing too. Tehran, this is what the article says. Tehran likes to present American police brutality at home as if it were another aspect of the U.S.'s policing of the world, such as that which excludes Iran from access to international trade. Now they say, other than a 2-year respite following the now defunct Obama-era nuclear plan or nuclear deal that Trump scuppered, the U.S. has applied sanctions for a full decade on any individual or commercial entity transacting business with Iran. It is, in the words of the Iranian government, a financial war that has wiped out much of the middle class and impoverished its working class. They say the rulers in Iran want its population to know that the knee on their necks is American, not Iranian. Okay? And that's very true. Like America, they say America's nothing but bullies. They bully people. And they also talked about in this article, they talked about how the United States basically goes around the world, and they say the same thing that I've told you all a myriad of times. They basically say they go around the world trying to tell other people in other countries how to treat their people and pointing the finger as if other countries are inhumane when they treat African Americans worse in this country. And they absolutely do. Okay, so Sister said America is not the world's police. I absolutely agree. Now, with that all being said, hold on. There's one more thing I want to show also. These are some pictures of Tupac in Iran back in the 90s. Let me take Trump off the screen. Okay, these are some pictures of him in Iran in the 90s. And like I told you, I think I told you all this before. I find it interesting that many of the leaders that the U.S. can't stand, many of the countries they can't stand, it's usually countries that don't have a problem with Black people. Have y'all noticed that? Hold on. Ashkan said, what? That's Isfahan. My grandpa's house is right there. Are you serious? Isn't that something? Okay, that's something. Now, with that all being said, let's listen to Iran's new video that they dropped just yesterday. It's called The List. I think that's the name of it. And it's got a reggae style beat, and I absolutely am here for it. Let's get into it.
Yo. They found a little black book. Take a look, don't overlook. Trump allegedly on page 4008. Just coffee, yeah, that checks out great. Allegedly 40 visits to the island of fun. Never been there, oops, flight logs 1. Photos allegedly fake, memories allegedly gone. Justice, allegedly sleeping case, allegedly moved on. Epstein, nice guy like some young. Said the man with the orange tongue now is crying witch hunt and fake. While the evidence allegedly burns for his sake. The list, the VIP list. Powerful men who allegedly don't exist. Your president, your hero, your star, allegedly caught on camera from afar. 40 times, coffee boy sure. The island allegedly loved him, that much is pure. Epstein's dead, secrets in the ground. But the photos Donald allegedly still go around. Allegedly.
I don't know. Go open the window, please, because I'm on live. This is embarrassing. Okay, hold on, guys. This is totally embarrassing. The smoke detector's going off. Hold on for a second.
Trump. All Israelis rejoice in the incredible rescue of a brave American pilot by America's dauntless warriors. This proves that when free societies muster their courage and their resolve, they can confront seemingly insurmountable odds and overcome the forces of darkness and terror. This rescue operation reinforces a sacred principle. No one is left behind. This is a shared value demonstrated time and time again in the history of both our countries. As a nation that repeatedly carried out daring rescue operations, and as someone who was wounded in such a mission and lost a brother in the Entebbe rescue, Israelis and I, we know what a bold decision you took. President Trump, Donald, my dear friend, once again, your decisive leadership brought another great victory to America. I salute you. We all do.
I think we've seen enough of the BS. Now, here's the thing. Some people still insist that BB is not here with us. They think that all of these videos are AI. Sadly, I think he is here, okay? But let's go to Colonel McGregor because he's speaking again about what's going on. Hold on, let me pull this up. Okay. This is a report from 4 hours ago. Air raid sirens blared through the city. Tel Aviv shook. This is from Colonel Douglas McGregor. Okay, so let's get into it. I'm going to use an overlay, of course, so I don't have permission to use this video. Likes up, everyone, please. Like and share. Here we go.
Iran in an unprecedented sort of way. We've adopted this sort of Israeli approach to war, which is we try to assassinate all of your leaders. Ultimately, that has not worked very well because the Iranians were prepared for it, and they had very clearly delineated chains of succession. So virtually everybody who was killed, frankly, knew they were likely to be killed and had already designated people to replace them. Secondly, the Iranians knew they could never stand up to our Air Force. They could probably shoot down some of us if they were lucky. And they had practically no Air Force to begin with. A lot of people are listening to President Trump say, well, I destroyed Iran's Air Force. Well, there wasn't much to destroy. And then he says, well, we've destroyed their Navy. Well, 7 frigates is about all the Iranians had. Everything else were small little patrol boats or motorboats. They do have some diesel submarines. I don't know whether or not those have been accounted for, because the Navy doesn't like diesel subs because they're very, very hard to track, especially in shallow water. But my point is, Iran knew all of these things were going to happen. So where did they put all of their investment over the last 20 years? Well, they put it into huge underground facilities that are very, very safe. And they have thousands upon thousands upon thousands of missiles. Before the war began, the best estimate that I could get from people I trust was 45,000 missiles. Now, they're not going to run out of missiles. And the interesting part is that during the first few days, they hurled at the Israelis and us relatively old missile technology. Over the last few days, they've started to use their hypersonic precision-guided weapons, which are very, very accurate, very devastating, and they cannot be stopped. In other words, it doesn't matter what sort of air and missile defense you have. They can't be stopped. So they're hitting anything they aim at. And I was interested to listen to the 4-star General Kane sort of talk about, well, you know, we struck 5,000 targets. We've killed all these leaders. Oh, woof, woof, woof. I thought I was listening to a briefing back in 1967 in Vietnam. You know, we've gone out there, we dropped this many bombs and everything, as though that was some sort of indicator of victory. It never was. In fact, right up until we left in 1972, air officers, airmen, Air Force officers were telling us, we flew X number of sorties today, we dropped so many bombs. Didn't make any difference. What you bomb counts for a great deal, but it's also a function of what the people on the ground do. The Iranians were waiting for us. They were ready. They knew they would take some losses. They knew they could not prevent their cities from being damaged to the extent that we've done it. But they were prepared to accept that damage because they had the means to strike back. Right now, we don't have an effective air and missile defense in the Gulf. In other words, all of these small states that are really legacies of the British Empire. You know, the British moved into the Gulf a couple of hundred years ago, and they picked up various sheikhs from tribes and say, okay, we're going to let you run this area, in return for which you're going to get paid a lot of money. In the meantime, we're going to get all the oil we want. Literally, that's the way it began.
Hold on. I want you all to pay attention. And see, that's why they're mad at Iran, because America thinks that they can just bully countries and put who they want to be the leaders, people who are going to be soft with them, and let them get away and do whatever they want. That's the problem. Okay, they had a deal like that with Iran at some point, but then Iran, you know, just did their own thing and took that person out of power. Now I want you all to pay attention, because I have to switch, because I just realized that Professor Mohammed Marandi is speaking live on this podcast, and it says Iran clashes with U.S. Special Ops over downed pilot. Okay, so let's go. I need to know what this is all about. So let's get into it.
and 4 helicopters alongside them. Apparently, there were 4 helicopters. That's not a success. Assuming that this is just about retrieving a single injured pilot. And I saw something, I think it was on Sky News, where I saw a clip where they were talking about this pilot, and you saw there was wall-to-wall coverage. When they slaughtered 68 little girls at an elementary school, we didn't see any wall-to-wall coverage. Actually, we didn't see any coverage. But and then one of these people who was on the show on Sky News was saying, they're seeking him out and they're trying to find him, and this puts a human face on this this whole war. And I was wondering, like, the guy who bombs kids, that's the human face of it all, and all those kids slaughtered, and all those women slaughtered, and all those workers in factories who were burned alive by the Americans and Israelis. And the fact that Trump wants to send Iran back to the Stone Age.
Yeah.
You don't see any Western media outlet say these, threatening to send Iran back to the Stone Age. These are threats of crimes against humanity. You don't see any outrage in The Guardian or among these European leftists who pretend to be, anti-imperialists. You don't see anything from anyone. And it just shows the utter moral bankruptcy of the entire political class in the West. And I'm not just talking about Democrats and Republicans. I'm talking about those sort of mainstream critics of U.S. foreign policy. The language that Trump is using to dehumanize, and of course, all of them are complicit. I mean, all these people who've been saying the Iranian regime is this and lying. Even people like, even like the so-called leftists and others who are sort of on the margins of the mainstream political sphere, who on the one hand they say don't attack, don't bomb. Yes, they're bad, they're evil, they murder, they slaughter tens of thousands of peaceful protesters and all that nonsense. And of course, just today, Trump admitted that he was sending weapons to the protesters, according to Sky News, according to Fox News journalists who spoke to him today. But of course, that's all ancient history. They'll just repeat the same nonsense over and over again. But it is quite stunning that we are living in a day and age where the leader of the United States can threaten to send people back to the Stone Age repeatedly. And no one is saying this is a monster. These are monsters who are in charge. And that basically means that they're all monsters. That means everyone at the New York Times, in the Guardian, all these in the Washington Post and Fox News, MSNBC, BBC, they're all monsters. There's no difference between any of them, because many of them have Twitter accounts. I don't see any of them screaming and pulling their hair out for these threats being made against the Iranian people. But in any case, this is no victory, and they can pretend that it's a victory. It's all been a victory. This war was supposed to be over in 2 days, and then our missiles were supposed to finish in 1 week. And here we are into the 6th week, and the Iranians are hitting hard. There's targets in this sinister apartheid regime, this genocidal regime, and across the Persian Gulf at U.S. affiliated assets. And the Strait of Hormuz is controlled by Iran. So if this is all a big victory for Trump, well, okay.
Yeah, well, people may forget, especially in the West, that this F-15 was shot down trying to.
Okay, listen, I'm going to stop right there. But listen, I want to finish up with what Colonel McGregor was saying. So let me just explain to you all, because many people don't know that Iran and the United States used to be allies. Okay, They used to be allies. So they were allies, very close allies, in fact, for several decades. Now, mind you, this was particularly between 1953 and 1979. You see, during this era, Iran was considered a pillar of U.S. foreign policy in the Middle East and acted as a key regional partner against Soviet influence during the Cold War. Okay, please pay attention. Now, the 1953 coup, let's talk about it. Okay, so the alliance solidified after the U.S. and UK helped to orchestrate a coup to restore Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi to power. Okay, following his brief exile and the ousting of Prime Minister Mohammad Mossadegh. I know I'm saying that wrong, but I think it's Mossadegh. Now, here's what happened. In 1957, the U.S. helped to launch Iran's nuclear program through the Atoms for Peace program, providing Iran with its first nuclear reactor and enriched uranium. Okay, now the U.S. became Iran's primary arms supplier, while Iran provided a steady flow of oil to the West. By the 1970s, the relationship was described as a robust partnership where Iran was often referred to as the policeman of the Gulf. My, how things have changed, right? So let's find out how it all turned wrong. The shift of adversaries. Okay, so there was a revolution in 1979. Now, mind you, this is what happened. The alliance ended abruptly with the Iranian Revolution. The U.S.-backed Shah was overthrown. Now, mind you, the Shah was who the U.S. wanted in power because he was giving them what they wanted, so they were perfectly fine. They were even supplying Iran with weapons, okay? Please pay attention. Now, with that all being said, so he was overthrown and an Islamic Republic was established under Ayatollah Khomeini. Okay, I'm sorry, Ayatollah Khomeini, who labeled the U.S. as the Great Satan. Then there was a hostage crisis. Relations were severed entirely during the 1979-1981 hostage crisis when Iranian students seized the U.S. embassy in Tehran and held 52 Americans captive for 444 days. Now, according to recent reports, the two nations have transitioned from one-time allies to active military conflict following surprise airstrikes by U.S. and Bibi's people in February of 2026 with Operation Epic Fury. Now, with that all being said, here's the thing. So prior to that 1979 revolution, the U.S. and Iran maintained a multifaceted strategic partnership characterized by major agreements in oil, nuclear energy, and even defense. This relationship was formalized through several key deals that established Iran as a primary U.S. regional proxy during the Cold War. Okay, so they had all of these deals and agreements. Now, why did they start take the hostages? Well, here's the reason. The primary reason they took the hostages, they seized these hostages at the U.S. Embassy in Tehran on November the 4th of 1979, was to demand the extradition of the deposed Shah, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi. Now, the crisis was triggered by President Jimmy Carter by the decision that he made to allow the Shah to enter the United States for cancer treatment on October 22nd of 1979. Iranian revolutionaries viewed this move with deep suspicion, fearing that it was a precursor to another U.S.-backed coup like the one in 1953. See, they thought they were up to something, and who knows, they could have been. That coup back in 1953 that had previously restored the Shah to power. Okay, so with that all being said, the hostage takers demanded that the U.S. return the Shah to Iran to stand trial for alleged crimes and human rights abuses committed during his reign. Now, I want you all to pay attention because Trump wants us to think that he was trying to, get liberation for the people of Iran, that Ayatollah Khomeini was such a dictator and so mean to his people and all of this, but, they had complaints about the Shah that the United States helped to put in power. Okay, and they felt as though now you all are trying to stop us from punishing him for his crimes committed. Okay, so anyway, the students aimed to declare a definitive break from Iran's past as a U.S. ally and end what they perceived as ongoing American meddling or sabotage of the new revolution. And that's exactly what the U.S. was doing, meddling. They wanted things to stay the same, and they wanted to dictate who's in charge in Iran so they can get what they want. And as long as they were getting what they wanted, do you You think they were concerned about weapons over in Iran? No, they were not. In fact, they were supplying them with weapons, okay? Now, internally, the crisis was used by hardline followers of Ayatollah Khomeini to consolidate power and undermine more moderate members of the provisional government, such as Prime Minister Mehdi Bazargan, who were open to maintaining some ties with the West. Now, mind you, when all of this was going on, they said there was a nest of spies. Revolutionary groups claimed the embassy was a nest of spies and used reconstructed shredded documents found inside to prove that the U.S. was actively working to destabilize the new Islamic Republic. Now, while the takeover was initially planned as a symbolic short-term occupation for a few hours or days, it ended up being transformed into a 444-day standoff after receiving the full public endorsement of Ayatollah Khomeini. Now, I want you all to pay attention because here's the thing. At the end of the day, it sounds like as long as the U.S. gets what they want, as long as Iran bows down to them, then they'll let them do whatever. They won't have a problem. But the minute you go against them and you don't let the U.S. have their way, they want to bully you back into submission. That's what it is. They want to bully Iran into submission because they're not doing so. That's the problem. Okay? Please pay attention. That's exactly what this is all about. So there you have it. That's the history of it. And also, let me just remind you, and for those of you who don't know, during the hostage crisis, they absolutely did release all of the Black hostages and the women. Okay, they released 13 of the hostages, those being Black people and women. And some of the white people in America were so upset. They were making threats. They were angry and all of that because they wanted to know, why would the Black people be released first and not the white folk? Okay, because how dare you? But it was because they said the Black people are oppressed in this country already. Okay, so I want you all to pay attention. That's the history of it. Okay, so now let's go on to this news clip from 3 hours ago from ABC. Likes up, everyone, please. Like and share. Thank you in advance.
Is exchanging intense fire on a daily basis. Iran and the U.S. vowing to send each other to hell with threats of more strikes on infrastructure. President Trump posting this video on Saturday showing heavy bombing inside Iran, while thick plumes of smoke are seen rising from a petrochemical complex in Iran's southwestern region. Israel taking responsibility for that, saying the facility makes critical components for ballistic missiles. 5 people killed in that attack, according to Iranian state media. Now, the Iranian death toll now at 3,540. That's according to HRANA, a U.S.-based human rights group. Iran also saying a U.S.-Israeli airstrike landed in the area near its Bushehr, a nuclear power plant, killing a security guard and damaging a support building there. The International Atomic Energy Agency voicing deep concern. But so far, no reports of increased radiation levels have been reported. However, we did hear from the WHO as well, warning that such strikes ultimately could trigger a nuclear accident that would devastate generations, George. Yeah, George, frankly, this conflict only seems to be escalating, with all sides exchanging intense fire on a daily basis. Iran and the U.S. vowing to send each other to hell with threats of more strikes on infrastructure. President Trump posting this video on Saturday showing heavy bombing inside Iran, while thick plumes of smoke are seen right.
Trump just needs to sit down somewhere and give it a rest, okay? So that all being said, no to war. Europe pushes back at Trump, refuses U.S. military access for Iran war. This, yeah, they're basically not with it. And, you know, these people are going in on Trump. Okay, they're going in on Trump. He's basically making threats about NATO. NATO doesn't really seem to care, if you ask me. My question is, what happens if Trump just basically says he quits NATO? Doesn't want anything to do with them. Let's get into it. Likes up, everyone, please. Like and share. Thank you in advance. Charlene said, thank you for the history, Queen. Oh, you're welcome, beloved. Okay, Pensacola says, our exodus. Okay, and thank you for your insight into the topic, Pensacola, and your contribution to the channel, beloved. I appreciate you. Peace, love, and blessings. Okay, here we go.
A question
Let me get my overlay.
that is echoing everywhere, even in your mind, if you have been keeping up with US President Donald Trump lately. What happens if Donald Trump quits NATO? What if the United States of America, the military backbone of the Western alliance, suddenly walks away? Would Europe be left exposed? Would Russia feel emboldened? And can Trump even do it? Because make no mistake, this is not just a political debate in Washington. This is a question that could redefine the balance of power across the world. NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, is not just another diplomatic club. It is the most powerful military alliance in modern history. At the heart of NATO lies its most famous promise, Article 5. The rule is simple but terrifyingly powerful. An attack on one member is an attack on all the members. But now, Donald Trump's repeated threats to reconsider America's role in NATO are sending shockwaves through Europe and Washington alike. Here is the big question. Can Trump actually pull America out of NATO? Legally, it is not that simple. In fact, under a bipartisan law passed by the US Congress in 2023, no president can unilaterally withdraw the United States of America from NATO. The law clearly says the president cannot suspend, terminate, denounce, or withdraw from NATO without either a 2/3 Senate vote or an act of Congress. And here is the political irony. One of the co-sponsors of that legislation was none other than Marco Rubio, now one of the most prominent voices in Trump's foreign policy orbit.
Okay. Basically, Trump can't just quit NATO. That's the gist of it. He can make all the threats, but he can't just go ahead and quit. Go ahead and quit. And that could be problematic because the experts have warned that if a president just quits NATO, they can actually cripple the alliance from within. So, with that all being said, let's continue. I told you all that all sounds just like what Trump's doing, like I've been telling you all for months. Trump is dismantling the United States from the inside out. Okay, please pay attention. Now, hold on, because I saw a comment. Right. Okay. Lieutenant Maxwell said, Queen in chat, don't forget the late activist Karen Silkwood claimed that the CIA was stealing nuclear materials from the nuclear power plant she worked at and was smuggling and selling them to Iran. You're talking about the Iran-Contra scandal. Yeah, that was the Iran-Contra affair, as it's often called, from the 1980s. That was a political scandal where, with the Reagan administration, that was also nefarious. Officials were secretly selling weapons to Iran, okay, an enemy under arms embargo. That's what they were doing to secure the release of American hostages in Lebanon. Funds from these sales were illegally diverted to fund the Contras, which was a rebel group fighting the socialist government in Nicaragua. Now, in 1985 to 1986, the U.S. secretly authorized the sale of missiles to Iran, hoping to free hostages held by Hezbollah. So that's what you're talking about, that whole Oliver North testimony and all of that. It was all very interesting if you go back and ever research that stuff. Okay. Oh, you're saying not the Iran-Contra. You're talking about a separate issue with Karen Silkwood. Okay, well, that's what I thought you were talking about, honey bun. Okay, and so anyway, with that all being said, listen, everybody please like and share. Okay, thank you in advance. Now, let's continue. We have a few more clips And then I'm out of here. Okay, I'm out of here. Do you all want to see ones in the chat if yes, twos if no? Do you all want to hear Trump's Easter speech? Do you all want to hear Trump's Easter speech? Yes or no? Let me know because I haven't. I haven't listened to it, but I can imagine it was filled with BS. You all said yes. 917K said yes for my entertainment. Okay. All right. So, Lieutenant Maxwell, what you were talking about with Karen Silkwood, okay, that's the nuclear technician and UN activist who died in a 1974 car crash while trying to expose safety violations and plutonium contamination at the Kerr-McGee plant in Oklahoma. While her case involved significant scrutiny regarding plutonium handling, there is no direct evidence linking her to Iran. That's what they say. Speculation about her death involved potential covert, possibly government-involved activities regarding nuclear security rather than foreign policy with Iran. Well, I tell you what, it sounds very suspicious that she died in a car crash, like we've heard in many cases with people who become whistleblowers. They said she was driving to meet New York Times reporter with documents documenting these violations when she died in a mysterious single car crash. A single car crash, that definitely sounds mysterious, okay, and suspicious. Lingering questions. An investigator found evidence her car was run off the road, though officially it was ruled a case of falling asleep at the wheel. Her family later engaged in a long-term lawsuit that set precedents for corporate liability in the nuclear industry. Okay. So I find that all interesting. Wow. They have no problem taking whistleblowers out. This is why you have to, really have to pay attention. These whistleblowers, they really put themselves in harm's way. They really take a risk. Okay, so let's go to Trump's Easter speech where he talks about, yeah, you know what? Peaceful Living, they did make a movie about her. I saw it. And didn't Cher play in it? It was called Silkwood. That movie was called Silkwood. I think that's it. Okay, now listen, Trump's Easter speech is about evil and wickedness will not prevail. He's clearly talking about himself, or at least he should be. Okay, he should be. Let's get into it.
I'm proud to join with Christians across the country and around the world to celebrate the most glorious miracle in all of time, the resurrection of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. In his life, Christ displayed true humility. In his death, he modeled true love. And in his resurrection from the tomb, he proved that even death itself will not silence those who place their trust in Almighty God. As it says in Gospel of John, for God so loved the world that he gave his only Son, for whoever believes in him should not perish, but have eternal life. Eternal life, such beautiful words. This Easter, millions of Christians all over the globe will be reminded that because of what Jesus did on the cross, all of us can live every day with hope in God's promise, knowing that in the end, evil and wickedness will not prevail. In the spirit of joy and renewal this Easter, we also celebrate the extraordinary resurrection of faith and religion in America. As I have often said, to be a great nation, you must have religion and you must have God. In churches across the nation on Sunday, the pews will be fuller, younger, and more faithful than they have at any time in many, many years. Religion is growing again in our country for the first time in decades. Happy Easter to all. May God bless you. May God bless the United States of America. Our country is doing so well like never before. Thank you.
Oh my goodness, I absolutely cannot. The nerve of him. Okay. It is the nerve of Trump for me. I absolutely cannot. Monty said his antichrist is showing heavy. He needs to go sit down somewhere. Yeah, he does. He absolutely does. Ashkan says it pains him. He's like a vampire confronted with a cross. Exactly. Low down, dirty devil. Who does he think wants to listen to him? Okay, I find it all so interesting. I find it also interesting. In other news, let's go to this video of Joe Rogan. Basically speaking about the war. It seems like he's turned on Trump. It seems like a lot of these right-wing conservatives are, because of this war. So let's go to this clip, and then we're going to be out of here. We're going to be out of here just in just a moment.
I hope so. Of course. I don't know.
Do you think about it?
Hold on, beloveds. I'm trying to get my overlay. Okay, there it is.
I'm confused. I can't believe we went to this war. When we started bombing Iran, I was like, this can't be true.
I'm scared, I'll be honest with you.
Yeah, you should be.
I'm scared.
Well, it's a scary time because this is a real
people are
hot
scared.
war.
That was, yes, Joe Rogan and Theo Vaughn slamming Trump over his war with Iran. You might also remember that a few weeks ago, Joe Rogan said this.
But it just seems so insane based on what he ran on. I mean, this is why a lot of people feel betrayed, right? He ran on no more wars and these stupid, senseless wars. And then we have one that we can't even really clearly define why we did it.
It's just the latest in a list of MAGA media commentators critical of Trump's war. Here is Megyn Kelly.
President Trump there saying, just like the ballroom, we're way ahead of schedule. I mean, like, this is talking about American troops dying, like putting their lives at risk. It's not just like the ballroom. Like, this is, and it's not just like a fun little excursion into Iran.
Look, Donald Trump has launched a wildly unpopular war after campaigning on the promise that he was not going to do any more wars.
We had no wars. They said, he will start a war. I'm not going to start a war. I'm going to stop wars. I was the only president in modern history who did not have any new wars, no new wars. Under Trump, we will have no more wars, no more disruptions, and we will have prosperity and peace for all.
Also, this war is making gasoline very expensive. Here is a president who is doing the exact opposite of what he said he would do, making things more expensive, involved in foreign wars, pretty much two of his biggest campaign promises. The important question, though, is, are they turning on Trump because he is disappointing them, or are they turning on Trump because it's a reflection of what their viewers want? If these MAGA commentators are reflecting the feelings of their viewers, especially someone like Joe Rogan, who has millions, tens of millions of viewers, it's going to be a big problem for Trump and a really big problem for the Republican Party.
Okay, I absolutely agree. But hold on, folks. There's breaking news. There's breaking news. It says Russia declares World War III has begun. West on high alert. Let's get to it. What is going on here? Likes up, everyone. Please don't forget to like and share. Thank you in advance.
What he called confidence-building measures. What steps has Russia taken to meet Mr. Trump?
War attending what you call it, the place where people without parents are taken. Orphanage. And as soon as we announce whatever details we have about those kids, and as soon as the parents or other relevant relatives make themselves available, they're getting the kids back. This has been the process for the last almost 3 years between the ombudsman of Russia and Ukraine.
So there's no new release of thousands of Ukrainian children at the request of President Trump?
No, nobody knows why some experts advise the president about thousands of Ukrainian children. Every now and then,
once in 2-3 months, we organize exchanges with Ukrainians with the help of Qatar, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, who do not, make any noise about what they're doing. They just do something which we are participating in very constructive manner, bringing kids back to their parents or relatives.
But what confidence building measure can Russia offer now, particularly after this strike in Kyiv, where the president of the United States is saying, Vladimir, stop? How do you convince the United States that Russia is actually serious about peace?
Well, confidence building measures have been plentiful in the last 10 years. I mentioned a deal in February.
The strike was overnight.
You want a brief answer, right? As I understand from your initial words. Or you want an answer which is explaining the situation. The proposal by President Trump on 30 days moratorium on the strikes against energy infrastructure was supported by President Putin and observed strictly. This was a confidence-building measure against the policy and action taken by Zelensky regime. As I said several hundred times, civilian energy infrastructure was trapped. Another confidence-building measure was the proposal of President Trump and his team to resume the deal on Black Sea. And the delegations met in Istanbul, in Riyadh. The delegations exchanged the views how this can be implemented in practical terms, and the proposals made by Russia are being considered by the United States. There are many other examples about confidence-building measure, but if you believe that it's only Ukraine who is interested in confidence building, I think a short answer would be this is an illusion.
Do you take President Trump at his word when he says if Russia is unable to make a deal on ending the bloodshed in Ukraine, he'll put secondary tariffs, I think he means sanctions there, on oil coming out of Russia? Or do you think that at this point, the relationship between Russia and America has been rebuilt and that won't happen?
Well, I cannot comment on what you think President Trump meant when he said something.
What do you think he meant when he said secondary tariffs on oil coming out of Russia?
Well, we hear many things coming from President Trump. President Trump said that he's sick and tired of the situation in this settlement, especially yesterday when he commented the statements by Zelensky. And President Trump has his own proposals and has his own style in mentioning those proposals in his public speeches. We concentrate, as I said, on the real negotiations which President Trump supports and instructed his people to continue to engage in these negotiations. I'm sorry, the answer was a bit longish, but it's difficult to explain otherwise.
So I ask about the threat of sanctions or secondary tariffs, because you recently said in an interview, if you had to personally pick sides, you would keep the existing sanctions in place on Russia. You said you've restructured the economy to be self-sufficient, and there is a growing fear that, quote, cunning Americans will lift sanctions all of a sudden to flood our market with services and technologies. So if that's the case, why should the United States consider lifting sanctions at all?
Why do you ask me? You just quoted my statement, and this statement is clear for me and clear to all those who read it. If you have questions to the American side, how they treat the situation, it is not the right address to raise it with me.
So you want to keep sanctions in place? Is that really the Russian position?
I don't want to re-explain what I explained, I think, in quite clear manner. And you quoted, I think, very close to the
I quoted you.
To the real content, yeah.
Okay, he's calling her stupid without calling her stupid, lady. He's telling you you literally read what I said. What are you asking me again for? Okay? She is so annoyed. It's like she's trying to lead him into saying what she wants to hear, what she wants him to say, but he's not going to do it. Girl, sit down somewhere.
The Russian market in the second half of 2025.
Well, the president of Russia commented upon this situation. He said that we have nothing against American company, but those companies who decided to leave their business in Russia might find that their place has been occupied already.
Ashkan said, find a different seat. I'm so done. Pincy Lola said, perpetrators of a fraud. Exactly, beloved. Okay. Thank you for your contribution to the channel. Peace, love, and blessings. I appreciate you. Lieutenant Muxman said, he's like, yikes, shut your A up. You are something else. So let's continue.
By business ties. Of course, we will look into this, and if we find balance of our interests, I think it would be only natural to get into business together.
Well, what areas has the U.S. offered to lift sanctions on? Because it wouldn't be possible for many American companies to enter the Russian market right now under the existing sanctions.
It is up to them to decide.
So no offer has been made?
No. How can we offer something in a situation
The United States to Russia.
Well, the United States clearly tells us that they are interested in doing business together. We never reject business proposals provided they're based on the equal opportunities and the treatment of each other and lead to a balance of interest. Specific proposals which are being mentioned in the media, I cannot comment upon. This is not serious. We are not we are not acting like the people in Kyiv who talk to the world through the media, including talking to presidents of great countries.
So if I understand you correctly, you neither fear sanctions nor want them lifted.
Look, you quoted my statement, and
yes,
you quoted it right. That's my position.
Okay. So when President Trump threatens new sanctions, that's not of concern.
You're asking this for the third time.
I was literally just about to say that. He said, you're asking this for the third time. I was just about to say, why in the world is she asking him the same darn question, but trying to phrase it, trying to rephrase it? It's still the same question. Lady, you're an idiot. If I was him, I'd be done with this conversation. Okay, I'd be done. Okay, please. Spencer Lola says reparations now. Cut the check. All of them. Okay, exactly. For us and Iran. Low down, dirty skanks. Okay, thanks for your insight to the topic and your contribution, beloved. I appreciate you. Peace, love, and blessings. This is hilarious to me. Let's keep listening.
Yeah.
Well, we judge by the reaction of our American colleagues to what we tell them. And this is being done during negotiations. They're confidential as any serious negotiation. And they know our position. And they, as I quoted Marco Rubio, he publicly said that they better understand the Russian position and the reasons for what is going on. And he said that nobody in Washington lifted a finger to do the same, to try to understand Russia during the Biden administration.
Hold on. Rishkan says, pans back to a cardboard cutout of him. He's long gone. I am so through with you all. Oh my goodness, this is hilarious.
And this implies that the dialogue continues, that the dialogue is supported by the United States, and I reiterate that it is supported by the Russian Federation, and this dialogue continues.
So President Trump said he expects to meet soon with Vladimir Putin. what's an acceptable time and location? Why should they meet?
Doesn't this sound like a question that she should be asking Trump rather than him? This is all crazy.
Look, the presidents are masters of their own destiny and of their own schedule. I heard President Trump say that he is planning to be somewhere mid-May, and that after that he would be suggesting some dates. I cannot add anything else.
Right. He said he was asked about meeting with Vladimir Putin specifically in Saudi Arabia, and he said most likely not. That's in mid-May, but shortly thereafter.
You said the same thing as I.
Right.
So
well,
we
what
read,
are you planning?
So we read the same newspapers and watch the same channels on TV.
Right, but I can't pick up the phone and call Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, like you can. What plans are you making for the two to meet?
Look, I hope your listeners understand very well that it is not ethical for a foreign minister to prejudge, to presume what presidents might or might not discuss.
But you think it would be good for the two leaders to meet soon? Do you expect that's what Envoy Witkoff is negotiating?
We're always in favor of meeting with people who...
Ever wondered what your home looks like from space? Enter your address and get a 360-degree satellite view of your home right now. See your city, your street, even your rooftop from above like never before.
To make sure that whenever those national interests do not coincide, and this is in most of the cases, this difference should not be allowed to degenerate into confrontation. And that's what dialogue is for. But they also added that when the national interests of two countries or of more countries coincide, it would be stupid to miss an opportunity to translate this coincidence into some material, mutually beneficial projects. And this is absolutely our position.
You know that President Trump is coming up on 100 days in office, and he has made clear his patience is wearing thin with the diplomacy here. Do you expect the U.S. and Russia to continue to talk after these potential peace talks fall apart? I mean, is the rebuilding of the relationship so significant now that you think it could withstand the peace talks in Ukraine falling apart?
First, Russia is always available for a dialogue. So you have to address your question to the American side. Second, you prejudge the current process by saying that eventual collapse of the talks. We concentrate on doing business, not on thinking, failures or victories about anything. Unless you concentrate on the facts, that's what we do. You cannot be serious about what you are doing.
Well, President Trump and Secretary Rubio said that the window was closing, that time is running out here. That's not my opinion. That's what they said.
Look,
I want to ask you a little.
No,
go ahead. Sorry.
Wait a second. I just quoted Marco Rubio, who yesterday said about better understanding of the Russian position. So maybe you missed that.
Well, he also said a decision in days needed to be made, and that the U.S. has other things to focus on.
No, we understand the impatience, because in the American culture, you create expectations, and you ignite tension around those expectations. This does not help to do real politics. But in our case, as I said, we are always ready for dialogue, ready for negotiations, and we would not, begin by banking on a failure. This would be a characteristic of bad deal makers, inexperienced deal makers.
Mm-hmm. Others in the Russian government have proposed that the U.S. and Russia could work together in the Arctic. Are there specific areas of discussion for cooperating right now?
You always want me to disclose things.
Well, this was a public statement.
Things which might be discussed by respective officials of Russia and the United States, by those who are responsible for trade, economic cooperation, investments, and so on and so forth. How do you expect a participant of negotiations which are still to reach some kind of specific understanding to disclose details in public? It is not serious.
I'm just
Yeah,
I'm asking what you think the potential is.
I read President Trump's book, The Art to Make a Deal, and he doesn't advise to disclose information before it's time.
Respectfully, President Trump speaks quite a lot about the things he would like to do with Russia and opportunities to work together. I understand you don't want to. On the specific things President Trump has said in public, one of the things he brought up is that the U.S. could work with Ukraine to operate the largest nuclear power plant in Europe, which is in an area, Zaporizhzhia. Russians control that area right now. Do you agree with President Trump's public statements that the best security would be for the U.S. and Ukraine to operate that together?
No, we never received such an offer. And if we do, we would explain that the power station, Zaporozhye nuclear power station, is run by the Russian Federation state corporation called Rosatom. It is being under monitoring of the IAEA personnel permanently located on the site. And if not for the Ukrainian regular attempts to attack the station and to create a nuclear disaster for Europe and for Ukraine as well, the safety requirements are fully implemented, and it is in very good hands.
So that's a no.
No, I don't think any change is conceivable.
Okay, because that was in a public statement from the White House to the media.
We as I said, we did not receive any proposal which would be specific. So, I understand that journalists have to speculate. We cannot speculate on something which is really not being mentioned during the negotiations.
This is something else. Now, Nirvana Tyler sent a super chat. Thank you, beloved. I appreciate your donation to the channel. Peace, love, and blessings. Now, apparently, she's gotten him confused with Trump because she said Trump talks a lot about what he wants to do with Russia. Okay, well, that's Trump. We know that Trump runs his mouth, and sometimes he says things that he shouldn't say. Okay, please. This man is not him. Okay, and so, I'm going to leave it right here, but I just find it interesting that she was just trying so desperately to get him to disclose things that are clearly none of her business. And as far as her saying that some of these things were public record, well, then if you have the public record, why are you asking him? Please pay attention. So I'm going to stop right there, and I'm going to go to this clip of Trump clearly talking too much. And like I said, this is who she thought he was.
Man who was very ill. It looked like he wasn't going to make it. I don't know. I won't mention his name. Should I? Do other people know his name? Do you want to mention it? He'll be proud. Go ahead. Tell him the story.
Okay. Well, thank you, Mr. President. Congressman Neil Dunn of Florida had some real health challenges, and it was very serious, and had a pretty grim diagnosis. And I mentioned it to the president. I said, Congressman Dunn is a real champion and a patriot because he's still coming to work. And if others got this diagnosis, they would be apt to go home and retire. And
What was the diagnosis?
It was, I think it was a terminal diagnosis.
He would be dead by June.
Okay, that wasn't public, but yeah, okay, that's it was grim. That's what I was going to say.
see how Trump was just telling that man's whole medical diagnosis? And then he said it was a heart problem, by the way. Why are you telling that man's business? Okay, Mike Johnson told you that in privacy, and here he is putting the man's business on blast. That's obviously what she expected the Russian foreign minister to do, but it wasn't happening. Okay, so we have one more bit of news. They're talking about the 30 days or criminal charges. Epstein files showdown just got real. Okay, let's get into it. Okay, let's get into it. This is the last video. Ashkan says, thank you for your time and energy at QueenAShakur and chat. This is such a good way to start the day, even if it's 12 p.m. Okay, thank you, beloved. I appreciate you. Peace, love, and blessings. Okay, now let's go to this last clip because I want to hear what they're saying about the Epstein files.
Got very real. Right after Todd Blanche was appointed the Attorney General, Thomas Massie didn't waste a second. He immediately congratulated him. Then he dropped this: you have 30 days to release the remaining Epstein files or face criminal liability. Think about that. Not a suggestion, not a request, an ultimatum from another Republican. And this comes right after Pam Bondi was removed, with no clear explanation. So people are forced to wonder, was this about the Epstein files? Because Massie is pointing directly at the Epstein Transparency Act, which was a push to force full public disclosure. No more delays, no more secrecy. So now the pressure is on. Does Todd Blanche release everything or risk being accused of covering it up? And here's why it matters. For years, both sides have been asking who is involved and who's being hidden. And why haven't we seen everything? And now the clock is ticking. 30 days, and the question is simple. Are we finally going to get the full truth or another excuse? What do you think? Share your thoughts in the comments section and follow me for more.
All right, so listen, beloveds, with that all being said, I'm going to conclude this broadcast. Okay, Nirvana says Trump needs to disclose his own medical diagnosis. Yes, he absolutely does. But listen, when I come back later on this evening, probably around 7:30 or 8, between 7:30 and 8, that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about we're going to talk about his mental health, his mindset, and what many experts are saying about him and have said about him, in fact, in the past. Okay, I have the receipts. Okay, so please pay attention. Now, with that all been said, I love you all to life. I hope you enjoy the rest of this beautiful day. Each one teach one. That's how we grow and thrive. Do something productive, constructive, but never destructive. And always remember, beloveds, to keep the Most High first in your lives. Until next time, I will talk to you all again soon. Peace.
Yeah. You crossed the ocean just to find your grave. Sacrifice your own boys for a lie. Listen. Yeah. Yeah. Make America great again. Yo, Tails, is it crazy? Yeah. Make America great again now. We would see what happens, yeah. Watch this. Sacred defense, we protecting the soil. Why you sacrifice soldiers to pay for your spoil? You first who ran the globe, sitting on your throne. Now we turning every base into a bed of stone. It's a slaughterhouse, a trap you couldn't see. Welcome to the graveyard of your vanity. The secrets are leaking. The pressure is rising. We locked on the target. And now you are hiding. LOSCR. Yeah, we spelling at your name. Send them to the slaughter, you the only one to blame. Bleeding for a pucker while you shaking in your sweet. LOSCR. Taste the ash of defeat. LOSCR. Yeah, we spelling at your name. Send them to the slaughter, you the only one to blame. Bleeding for a pucker while you shaking in your sweet. LOSCR. Taste the ash of defeat. In your suit, hiding Epstein's ghost. You sent your boys to die on the bloody coast. Not a revenge for the leader's blood is purely mine. Every drop of his blood is a missile on the line. You thought you took him out, thought the fire was dead, but another common day is standing ahead. Yeah, you strike one down, we just shatter your brain. We put another in the leg. Common day again. The secrets are leaking. The pressure is rising. We locked on the target. And now you are hiding. LOSCR. Yeah, we spelling out your name. Send them to the slaughter, you the only one to blame. Bleeding me sweet. L-O-S-T-R. Taste the ash of defeat. Sacred defense of the homeland. Sacred defense of the homeland.